I think first of all, the Chinese statistics and the American statistics are different, or the official statistics are different. So many years ago, it actually is more than almost 20 years ago, I started to look into this to see why the statistics are different. Okay, and I discovered several things. The first thing is the following, and it's a technical thing, but it's good to know. That is, people measure exports as the value leaving your country, leaving your shore, called FOB, freight on board. But they measure imports, CIF, when it is the value when it arrives at your shore, right? And that includes not only the cost of the imports, but also insurance and freight. Okay, so usually the CIF, the import value, would be higher than the export value by 10%, right? And this is true for both countries. So you imagine the following situation: if Chinese exports the same amount, same value of exports to the United States, and United States exports the same value back to China, then in principle, there should be zero, right? But it's not, right? Then if you actually have the situation that I just described, each country will have a deficit with the other by 10% of the trade of the exports. You know what I mean? Because imports are counted as 10% higher on average than exports. So that's the first thing. Okay, that's the first thing we did, is to just measure all exports on the basis of the value leaving the country, not the value when it arrives at the other country. Okay, so that actually reduces part of the deficit because of this 10%, right? But the second thing that we include is services. Most of the time you talk about exports of goods and not services. Now services are actually becoming quite important, right? And for example, tourism services is very important, okay? Financial services can be very important, and also payments for license fees, right? Let's say, you make cell phones in China, then you have to pay license fees to Qualcomm, right? So that is a service. That's basically an import of services by China from the U.S., right? So actually, China runs a very large deficit on services with respect to the United States. So if you include that, that will again reduce the overall China trade surplus, right? So, and the third thing is the following, and this is a quirk, but you have to take that into account, and that is the United States counts re-exports through Hong Kong as also as Chinese exports to the U.S., okay? Chinese statistics do not count that because the Chinese customs, they have no idea once the goods leave China where it's going, right? So the Chinese statistics do not include that. Then finally, we also did an adjustment called a value-added adjustment, okay? Now let me explain to you a little bit. You see, every country, when they export, for example, you take the Apple computer, Apple cell phone, iPhone. Okay, when it's exported, it is worth maybe $500–600 US, right? But many of the components actually are imported, right? So the actual value added content in China is very small. It is actually less than 5%. Okay, so now it's higher for some other goods. So we actually did a calculation on these value added. Basically calculate the exports on the basis of value added, and we make that adjustment. Now, if you think about it for a moment, with Apple, the value added content is only about 5%. So the export value is $500–600 US, but the value added is only 5% of that. So if you do that adjustment, then we come out with basically 132 billion, right, is to take into account all these benefits. Now, in some sense, if you, I mean, it's still in China's favor, right?
That's right.
It's China, but it's much lower. But if you really want to consider the real benefit of exports, it has to be value added, right? It cannot be the gross value, right? So I think that is basically what I try to do.